What's crackin', party people? Today we're looking at Richter mode again. But today we're going to be playing as, excuse me, sorry. Playing as Maria. Maria in Richter mode. The basic difference between Richter and Maria. How do I explain this? Basically, I'm going to compare them to Dracula's Curse, Trevor, and Sypha. If you never played Dracula's Curse, basically, Sypha in Dracula's Curse, the concept of her character was that she did more damage, but that she was more vulnerable to damage from other sources. That isn't quite the case in Portrait of Ruin. I don't think Maria actually takes more damage than Richter, and if she does, it's a very small amount. But the more fundamental difference between Richter and Maria in Richter mode in Portrait of Ruin is that Richter moves much faster than Maria. I think I said in my previous Richter mode video that the way that Richter and Maria, I believe, are intended to interact with each other in a regular game run is that you spend most of the time playing as Richter because he gets around faster and because his whip does basically enough damage to kill normal enemies pretty quickly, and then you swap to Maria to kill bosses, because Maria does mega damage, but she doesn't move as fast. She doesn't have Richter's really fast run speed, she doesn't have his, like, slide kick jump, she doesn't have his super jump. She's much more, her control is much more conventional. And because she doesn't have the super jump, I'm actually going to take a little bit of a weird route to get through the castle. Which I don't really have to do. If I really wanted to, I could just swap to Richter, just use a super jump, which I'm going to do later in the run anyway, but I just decided for fun to do a slightly different route. Because there's a point very early on in Portrait of Ruin where you're supposed to... it's the game's way of teaching you that you can swap between characters. What you're supposed to do is jump on top of like a statue, then push the statue over to get onto a ledge. But in Richter mode, all pushable objects are gone, because there is no pushing objects in Richter mode. And the consequence of that is that this ledge that you're supposed to get onto to get to the first part of the game that gives you access to the city of Haze is not accessible except with Richter's super jump. So Maria can't get on that ledge. The only way she can get to that first area of the game is by going through a part of the Great Stairway that's going to take her back to the entrance. Also going to take her past the Nation of Fools. So actually the first painting that I'm going to do in this whole run is going to be the Nation of Fools, which is not a huge deal because, I don't know if you noticed, but when I killed the Behemoth at the very start, I got 5 levels, and I just got another one. So it doesn't really matter. Level 8, level 9, level 10 is definitely a high enough level to do the Nation of Fools. And Maria is like... So what's interesting about Maria is that even though Maria does not run as fast as Richter and doesn't have all of his crazy movement options, she still moves like pretty darn fast, and the dragon is like the best offensive tool in the game. So even though she's not walking around as fast as Richter is, she's almost like clearing shit out faster than he is, because the dragon moves so fast and does so much damage. You'll notice there that when the dragon hits armored enemies, it like bounces off of them, which I think is pretty funny. And this is exactly what Maria mode should be, because Maria, for those of you who don't know, was a playable character in Rondo of Blood, which is what I think the best Castlevania game of all time. But Maria mode in Rondo of Blood is sort of like the easier is not just sort of, it's definitely the easier version of the game, because Maria in Rondo of Blood has higher damage than Richter and higher mobility than Richter. The only thing that she has, the only thing that Richter is better at than her in Rondo is he can take more damage than she can. But if you compare that to like the higher mobility she has compared to Richter and Rondo, the higher damage, the higher mobility easily makes up for the higher damage. Let me rephrase that. The higher mobility and dealing higher damage easily make up for the fact that she takes higher damage. Sorry, I'm working on being a little bit more clear when I communicate ideas. But of course, they couldn't replicate that in Portrait of Ruin because then Maria would be super overpowered, which is what she is in Rondo of Blood. Maria in Rondo of Blood is like the most overpowered thing in any Castlevania game. Instead of giving her higher damage and higher mobility, they gave her higher damage and lower mobility, but still good enough mobility that it feels good to play as her. And they also retained her sub-weapons from Rondo. The cat, the bird, the dragon, and the turtle are all her sub-weapons from Rondo. There's actually a couple sub-weapons in Rondo they didn't carry over because they're kind of superfluous. There's like an egg that's not that useful, and then there's a music box that is like terrible. I don't know what that one's all about. Anyway, I'm going to be using the dragon for most of the run, and I should explain also that Maria is kind of like Sypha in Dracula's Curse in that in Dracula's Curse, Sypha has 3 spells that do elemental damage. She has a fire spell, a lightning spell, and then an ice spell. And Yoko has the same thing, of course, in Julius mode of Dawn of Sorrow, and Maria has the same thing here, where the birds that she summoned, that I think I've used a little bit already, do fire damage, the cat does lightning damage, and then the dragon does ice damage. And she also has, and her basic bird attack does slash damage, which is really good. And she also has like a special attack where she has a special attack that is holy damage, but I'm not going to use that attack very much because it requires like a button combo to pull off that I'm not very good at doing consistently. And I also want to point out there that I took 17 damage from that fire wheel, which is much less damage than you would normally take from that, even on normal mode, which would suggest to me that Maria, because the environmental hazards in the Nation of Fools, the fire wheel hits your mind stat, and then which is your magic defense, and then the swinging blades hit your defense stat, which is your physical defense. So the fact that Maria only took 17 damage from that fire wheel would suggest that her mind must be pretty high, which is what Charlotte is like in the main game. She has higher mind. Jonathan has higher defense. But what's a little bit annoying about Richter mode is that you can't see Richter or Maria's stats, so you don't ever really know what exactly is going on with how their stats are allocated. You just kind of have to guess based on the game. But that's not a huge deal. It doesn't really matter. Because, again, it's not like you're going to say, oh, well, I'll take damage from this thing intentionally because I know I'm going to take less damage. You don't want to take damage from things in general when you play this game. Anyway, as I started saying a long time ago, the dragon is by miles her best sub-weapon. Because it goes really fast, it's really big. It comes out slightly above her head, which is super important because it means she can hit things above her really easily. And the bird attack actually also does kind of a similar thing, which is that it's angled upwards. And the reason that's so important is that hitting enemies above you is like one of the hardest things to do in Castlevania games in general. Hitting enemies below you is also kind of tricky, but enemies are above you more often than they're below you. So the fact that the dragon comes out above you, the fact that the birds are angled upwards are both really, really important little touches to Maria's arsenal, and they make her even better than she otherwise would be. And I want to directly contrast this actually with Maria mode from Dracula X Chronicles Symphony of the Night port, where it's like the worst alternate mode in any of these games, because Maria does no damage at all, and her dragon kind of does damage in the Dracula X Chronicles Symphony of the Night port, but the problem is that the dragon in Maria mode Symphony of the Night DXC doesn't come out above her head. It like just comes out in front of her and just this like awkward little oscillation, which means that it basically misses whatever you're trying to hit half the time. This dragon here is perfect. This is exactly like the Rondo dragon. It comes out above you, it goes in a straight fucking line, it hits whatever you're shooting at, and it does a bunch of damage. And it's like it's the central piece of Maria's arsenal of sub-weapons. Now, the fact that it does ice damage, ice is probably one of the most irrelevant attacking types in the game. I can't think of any bosses off the top of my head that are weak to ice. I think Karamet is. Agony and the Nest of Evil is. But other than that, I can't think of any others. And again, that's almost like a balance thing. Like, if the dragon had a more relevant attacking type, like Fire or Holy, it would be, like, way too good. And it's already, like, her best tool, so I think they just wanted to give her Fire, Lightning, and Ice, and then Dragon, the birds were red, so it made sense to make them Fire, because that's what they were in Rondo. I don't remember much about the cat from Rondo. But they just decided to make the cat a Lightning cat, and then the dragon is an Ice dragon. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. This is the route that I was talking about before to get to the entrance, and I'm going to go a little bit out of my way here to get an MP max up, because there's leveling in Rondo mode, in Richter mode, and there's also, you also do get benefits from the energy tanks and from the magic max ups. So, and I want to get as many of those as I can, because a lot of Maria's strategies on the late game bosses are going to involve copious use of her magic. And I just want as much of it as I can so I can minimize downtime, waiting for MP to regenerate. Maria's MP regeneration rate is much faster than Richter's. I think somebody somewhere said that it was 5 times as fast, which I can believe. So even though Maria's basic attack, which is the birds, is actually pretty good, the idea is that you're mostly going to be using your sub-weapons, and that's why the dragon is so important. Because you can just walk into a room and just clear shit out with the dragon almost immediately, and it's sort of like the thing... It's the thing that makes sure that she never encounters anything that she can't deal with. And that's a thing that all of these alternate modes in these Castlevania games kind of struggle to maintain a balance of, because if you're going to go into one of these games, and you're going to go into it with the objective of, I want to create a game mode where there are no RPG elements and the player can just play the game, well, now you have a bit of a conundrum, which is, how do you make the challenges that are meant to be overcome with a vast arsenal of like spells and weapons feasible to be overcome without also making whatever this alternate character is really overpowered? And to give you an example of what I'm talking about, Richter mode in Symphony of the Night, which is the first one of these alternate modes, is like pathetically easy, because they gave him access to item crashes, which is what he had in Rondo and Dracula X, but the item crashes in Symphony of the Night are absurdly overpowered to the point that the Holy Water item crash will kill basically every boss in Symphony of the Night in one go, which is why I have a video on my channel where I beat Richter mode in 10 minutes, because he doesn't have to like do anything. He has all these movement options from the start. He can run right to the end of the game. And to be clear to you guys, 10 minutes is like, people can finish Richter mode way faster than that. That's just like me with my terrible I'm bad at Richter mode, so the fact that I'm as bad as Richter mode as I am, and I can still beat it in 10 minutes, should be a testament to how overpowered Richter is. To directly contrast that, as I was saying earlier, Maria mode in DXC Symphony of the Night is the opposite problem, where Maria in DXC is severely underpowered, where she really struggles to deal damage to a lot of the enemies. She doesn't have any, like, nuclear options in her arsenal the way that Richter does, or frankly, the way that Maria in the Saturn version of Symphony of the Night does. Because there's 3 different versions of Symphony of the Night. There's a PS1 version, the one that everybody knows, there's a Saturn port, and then there's the PSP version, which was added on to the Dracula X Chronicles. And Maria mode in the Saturn version has actually a much better example of a nuclear option attack, where if you do like a correct button input on Saturn Maria mode, Maria becomes completely invincible for 50 seconds, and she damages whatever she gets in contact with. So that's like what they put into Maria mode in the Saturn to make sure that you never encountered a problem you couldn't deal with. And as you might imagine, the fact that this power is in the game means that that's just what you use most of the time. And again, I have another video on my channel where I beat Saturn Maria mode in 10 minutes for that exact reason. But the PSP Maria mode, they overcorrected too far in the other direction, where Maria is severely nerfed to the point that she struggles to kill a lot of enemies. And some of the bosses are just kind of really ridiculous to fight. Speaking of bosses, you're going to be seeing in a moment here why Maria is like the boss killer character. Part of it has to do with the fact that she does a lot of damage in general, and part of it just has to do with the general weaknesses of this boss. The Dualahan is weak to lightning, which in a normal playthrough of the game will never become relevant, because at this point in the main game you will not have access to any lightning attacks. I'm fairly sure. Because Jonathan can't do any lightning shit, and Charlotte doesn't get Thunderbolt until the Tower of Death. But in Richter mode you have Maria from the start, the cat does lightning damage, the cat basically shreds the Dualahan, so that's what I'm talking about. And that fight really would not have been much different if I went in and fought him at like level 5 instead of level like 13 or whatever the hell level I was. The higher level was really not a relevant factor there. He just dies super fast no matter what. But what's funny is that he's also weak to whip from so Richter also does pretty good damage to him, but Richter doesn't kill him as fast as Maria does. It's not like with Richter, it's not like you walk into the room and you blink and he's dead, which is what it's like with Maria. And with the Dullahan, even on normal mode, you kind of like don't want to give him an inch. There's no reason not to just kill him as fast as you possibly can. So where am I going now? Done the City of Haze, done the Nation of Fools. I think I'm going to go right to the Sandy Grave. I delayed doing the Sandy Grave in my Richter-only run because of, because I wanted to be the highest possible level to fight the boss in the Sandy Grave, because Richter is sort of very unsuited to fighting it, but with... Oh, I'm not supposed to go over here. I think I got confused. Yeah. I didn't mean to go this way. I'm taking an odd route. The fact that I went that weird path to go to the City of Haze meant that I was kind of like... I had to come back into this part of the castle twice, and I was confused about like where I was. So... Because if I had kept on going that path that I walked away from, it would have taken me to the caverns, and I don't bother going to the caverns on normal mode. Because all there is in the caverns for you would be like some XP, and then an energy tank, and a magic. An MP expansion. But on normal mode, it's not so brutal that I want like all of that I can get. On hard mode, I do. So on hard mode, I go to the trouble of going down there, even though on hard mode it's actually pretty tricky to get through that part of the game without dying. It's ultimately worth it for the extra health and the extra MP. Anyway, here's Karamet, and he's weak to ice, but I think I'm not using the dragon because the dragon has this tendency... So Karamet is very, like... He's very finicky, where you're supposed to hit his skull face when it comes out, but... Okay, actually the dragon is better. Okay, never mind. I was under the... Because, like, if you hit his body instead of his face, then he gets all, like... He gets all, like, He gets all, like, prissy, and he, like, decides, well, fine, if you're not gonna hit my weak spot, then I'm just gonna go right back into the cauldron, and you're not gonna be able to hit me again. So it's like, he has a very particular way... The game has a very particular way that it wants you to fight him. And if you hit his body too much instead of his head, then he just like goes back into the cauldron without giving you the opportunities you would normally have to damage his face. So he's a bit of a prima donna. He's a bit of a prima donna green slime skull monster. But now he's dead, so it didn't do him any good. I guess doing the Nation of Fools before the Sandy Grave also means that, like, because one important... I don't usually like think of... I think of being a higher level as just like a general convenience thing. There aren't usually like specific damage thresholds I'm trying to meet, but being able to kill the mummies in the Sandy Grave with one dragon shot is actually pretty important because there's so many of them, and you want to clear them out really fast, and the dragon is just good at doing that. So that's and I don't know if... I don't remember how much health they have, but they have a lot of health. They have like more health than I thought they did for a long time. So maybe the fact that I did the Nation of Fools first also meant that I could kill those guys in one dragon throw. I don't quite recall. Yeah, the cat gets the least use of Maria's sub-weapons, and it's just because the dragon is really good at hitting anything that's in front of you, and then the birds are really good. The red birds are really good at hitting anything that might be above you. And the cat's range of influence is basically already covered by the dragon. So, a little bit unfortunate, but that's okay. Look at that shit. That's crazy. It's just so good. It's like it's just so amazing because it just hits whatever you want it to hit. Like you're in front of something and then you use it and then it just hits it. It's insane. You don't have to do like you don't have to jump over them like with Jonathan on the shuriken and like try to aim all four of them. You don't have to like charge up a spell. You can do it while you're jumping. You can just like and it just hits what you want it to hit. It's so good. I'm bemused. Not bemused, I'm amused. Oh, this is pretty funny too. So, because there's no pushable objects, there's actually nothing stopping you from getting up to the boss arena from the left, but I realize, except that Maria can't double jump up that far, but then I realized, wait a minute, I can jump on these little turrets, so actually I can get up here without Richter. So I literally just realized that in that second, which is pretty cool. So this boss is going to be much easier to fight on Maria than it is on Richter because her insta-kill temptation attack isn't going to do anything, and because the birds do slash damage, and this bitch is weak to slash damage. Pretty much every boss fight that was a pain in the ass on Richter is going to be not necessarily a cakewalk, but much less of a pain in the ass on Maria, and most of the pain in the ass boss fights are not until the late game. Which I think I guess I should just mention this now. Like with my Richter mode run, this is not like with my Richter only normal run. This is not one continuous no death run. I did use save states here. I will admit that I don't quite remember where exactly I used them. It should just be whenever there's an obvious cut in the music, which is what I normally do in my videos. But usually I just do that for the sake of like smoothness in the final footage. I don't usually like reload from save states, but that's what I did here. Mostly just because of a few problems with the end game. So I think the way that this was segmented was pre-Stella Loretta and then post-Stella Loretta up to the 5th floor of the Nest of Evil, and then from the 5th floor of the Nest of Evil to the end of the game. And it's mostly because of the Nest of Evil that I chose to do this, which I'm gonna explain in more depth when I get to that part of the game. Although it shouldn't look that bad in the final footage when I get there, but again, like, I was reloading from save states. Like, I don't remember exactly how many, and you'll see what like the problematic area is when I get there, but I just wanted to make that clear as soon as I could remember to. Because I don't wanna, you know, I don't want to give a false impression. I don't know if anybody even cares. Like, I don't know. These later Castlevania games are so... I did not know that wall was breakable, by the way, until, like, literally exactly that second. That was the first time I ever did that, so I don't even know what's in there on Jonathan mode. I'm guessing a health expansion or a MP expansion that I just missed, but oh well. So the Stella fight on I almost said Charlotte. On Maria is, like... It's kind of the opposite of what I want to be doing on Charlotte, which is like... On Charlotte, I kind of want to stay on the floor to bait her down to the floor, to hit her with Raging Fire if I can. But with Maria, because the cardinals go upward, I actually want her to be above me, but Jesus Christ. I just never respect that attack. I just can't, like, wrap my head around the idea that her like, summon Crescent Moon attack is gonna hit me. I always just, like, get right up in her face when she's doing it. Because I don't conceptualize the moons as a danger until they're, like, moving. Yeah, that's pretty funny. In Richter mode, there's no Toad shapeshifting spell, so they just made it so that Maria can just, like, walk through that. Walk through the small spaces, which is pretty funny. Yeah, for some weird reason on Richter normal mode, the fact that you have access to Richter's super jump should mean that you should be able to take a route through the Tower of Death to get to the Grim Reaper fight without going through any of these rooms. But on normal mode, the path that would otherwise be available to you is inexplicably blocked. On hard, it's open, so it's like on hard they let you skip all these Tower of Death rooms. but on normal they don't. And it's an interesting decision, but I do think it's ultimately a fair decision because the changes that are made to hard mode make these rooms preposterously difficult on hard mode, and they're still tough on normal mode, but they're not like the most dangerous thing in the game, which is what they are, which is what they would be if you had to do them in hard mode. And you'll see the alternate path that I take when I upload my hard mode footage. Is Slogger weak to ice? I don't know. I can't really tell. Oh yeah, I should also mention that I'm gonna cheat a little bit up here, and I'm not talking about save states this time. I'm gonna swap to Richter during this Grim Reaper fight because, as I think I'm gonna demonstrate, so the Grim Reaper fight will oscillate between these two phases, where in one phase he's vulnerable to sub weapons, and then in one phase he's not. And the thing is that during this purple phase, he's like. Charlotte's sub-weapons don't do any damage, and her birds do literally 1 damage to him. So, I mean, could I burn through these purple phases 1 damage at a time with Maria's birds? Maybe. Would it be any fun at all? No. So I just use Richter here, because I just didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to, like, spend fucking 10 minutes fighting this guy, or however long it would take. Because the thing is that I don't know exactly how much damage the Grim Reaper takes before he swaps into his alternate, before he swaps between vulnerabilities, but it's a long fucking time. But well, it's a lot of damage if I'm doing it 1 damage at a time, because the Grim Reaper, overall has 4,444 health, so... And it seems like he swaps back and forth maybe 4 times. So let's see, that's there. He just swaps back so fast because I'm doing 27 damage per hit instead of 1 damage per hit, which is a pretty big difference. Yeah, see, I could just wail on this guy for minutes and it wouldn't be good enough. So unfortunately, this isn't quite Maria only. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I lied to you in the title. I'm a terrible YouTuber. But the fact that he seems to swap back and forth maybe 4 times, so maybe you have to do like 500 or so damage in one, and then 500 in the other, I don't know. But like, think about it, like Richter's like hit him twice there for 72, which is of course 144, so... If I wanted to replicate the damage that Richter just did in those 2 swings, I would have to hit him with birds 144 times, which is a lot of times to hit him with birds, so just for like the sake of my own sanity and reason, I decided to slightly fudge my requirements and fight the Grim Reaper partially with Richter. However, when I fight the Death Dracula final boss in this Richter mode, I will be fighting them with just Maria, because at that point in time, Maria's birds are not going to do 1 damage to death. They're going to do much more than that. Because he's still resistant to slash damage at that point in the game, but I'm fairly sure, if memory serves, I think the birds will do 14 damage to death when I get to the final boss, and that's 14 times more damage than they were doing before. And the thing is, like, if it wasn't literally 1 damage, like if I was actually, you know what? Ooh, I could have... I'm trying to think of whether death is... Yeah, because I have to activate I have to activate the elevator to get to the top floor, or to get to the Master's Keep, and you can't activate the elevator on normal mode without killing the Grim Reaper. So if this was hard mode, I actually could have saved the Grim Reaper for much later in the run, but on normal mode, I had to fight him. That is fucking stupid. That... I feel like that dragon went right through that doll. Didn't you guys see the dragon go right through that thing? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Not a huge deal, because the birds... Maria's regular bird attack is really good. And that's part of why she's so good in Rondo of Blood, too. She has access to the dragon, which is a great sub-weapon, and then she also... Her, like, basic attack is also just really good. And here, the birds actually do what they should do in the PSP Symphony of the Night Maria mode, which is hit things multiple times. Like fly through things and then, like, come back to hit them multiple times. In the DXC Maria mode, they, like, don't really do that. They don't do what they're supposed to do, so her damage is, like, gimped to shit. It's totally inexplicable. Never play Symphony of the Night. Don't play the PSP version of Symphony of the Night. It's not worth it. I also would not really recommend the Saturn version, because there's too much loading, and the things they added in are not really worth it to put up with that. I don't know, if you want to hear the funny new English dub of Symphony of the Night on the PSP version, that's basically the only reason I could think of to ever do it. Maybe if somebody ever comes up with a way to, like, to take the Saturn version of Symphony of the Night and, like, totally eliminate the loading. Because, if you've never heard of Symphony of the Night on the Sega Saturn, it's because it was not very well, optimized. There's just a ton of loading in the game. You spend so much time waiting for loading to happen. So much more than there is in the PS1 version. So that's, like, the main reason why you wouldn't do it. Yeah, I'm thinking... Yeah, because you have to... There's no other way to get into the Master's Keep. You have to go through the elevator. Damn it. And the reason you can't go to get into the death room, the reason you can't activate the elevator... I'm trying to find the right way to phrase this. Basically, if you try to go to the elevator from the left, because you could get to that elevator room from the rising platform room that takes you to the Forest of Doom, but the thing is that on a Richter normal mode, you can't, like, the path from that room to the Tower of Death is blocked. So you can't, because normally what you can do in hard mode is you can go into the elevator room from the left, and then you can just super jump up to the little switch that turns the elevator on and then activate it from there. And I guess maybe you can skip the death fight entirely. I don't know. I don't know if the game, like, checks for that before it lets you do anything. But the point is that I could have done it later in the run if I wanted to on hard mode, but on hard mode, because I was using Richter and Maria, there was really no reason to. I don't know, maybe there's something I'm missing. If it wasn't literally 1 damage, if it was like even if it was like 3 damage instead of 1 damage, that's like triple the damage, you know what I mean? It's the fact that she does literally 1 damage to the Grim Reaper that makes doing that just, like, untenable. I don't know, maybe if I did the Forest of Doom first, then... Or no, can I even do the Forest of Doom first? Yeah, you can. I could have, yeah. Dude, I just want this guy to die. What's frustrating is that this guy is weak to fire damage, but you can't but the birds, the fire birds that Maria has, they come out at such an acute angle that you can't get close enough to him to get the birds to hit the frog on his back. That's actually where he takes damage. So it's, like, super frustrating. It's like you're so close. You're almost close enough to hit him, but not quite. So now I think I go back to the elevator and I go to the Master's Keep. I think that's where the first break is going to happen, before the Stella Loretta fight. Not that, although, there's not really any reason to, like... The Stella Loretta fight is not hard on Richter or Maria, basically. It's only really hard if you're trying to not kill them, which is what you have to do in the main game. If all you want to do is just kill Stella and Loretta, like, they're weak to everything. Their attacks often leave them immobile and vulnerable for long periods of time. Like, you can just shred them pretty much. But I think I just chose that point to break just because that was what, like, I did in my Richter mode run, and that's what kind of made sense to do. That's what makes the dragon so good, also, is the fact that, like, it moves so fast that it'll hit things like you don't even know exist. like, his enemies will like, appear, or, like, will be on the screen a little bit, they'll, like, be activated a little bit before you actually see them on the screen. And so what that means is that when the dragon flies off the screen, sometimes it'll hit enemies that are about to, like, become problems. Like, right there, I hit 2 bats in a row that I, like, couldn't see. Not quite the last one. I'll celebrate when I kill the last final guard. You're gonna hear fucking air horns going off. I'm gonna shoot off some fireworks. I'm gonna throw a fucking party. So yeah, here's the first break before the Stella Loretta fight, inexplicably, but there it is. Anyway, now we get into the second half of the game, and something that's going to become really, really relevant in the second half of the game. I would say more so than the first half is, yeah. Well, first of all, this is pretty fucking crazy. How massively Maria shreds Stella and Loretta. The thing is that, like, both of the thing is that they're both weak to fire and slash. So, like, the red birds demolish them and the white birds demolish them. So that's, like, they just get destroyed. But like I started to say, something that's going to become more relevant in this part of the game, I think, than the first like part of the game, is the fact that Maria's white birds do slash damage, because a lot of bosses are weak to sorry about that, got distracted for a second. Plenty of bosses are weak to slash damage, but the bosses in the later half of the game are going to be more dangerous than the early game. And just kind of harder to fight in general. I guess that's what dangerous means. When I say dangerous, I mean they do more damage and they're harder to kill. So having access to an attacking type that they're weak to is a big deal, especially the Frankenstein boss fight and the I guess the Mummy boss fight, technically, especially on Maria, since Maria doesn't have Richter's super jump, which is a pretty important tool for avoiding a lot of the to avoid some of the Mummy's attacks. It's not necessarily like, I mean, it's not mandatory, obviously, and the fact that, you know, here's an interesting thing I would love to know. I would love to know how fast Maria is compared to Jonathan and Charlotte at base, and with the Mercury boots, and with the winged boots. Like, is Maria... Because Richter is faster than Jonathan even with the winged boots. I can say that with absolute certainty. But I don't really know how fast Maria is. She feels like she might be about winged boots, or like Mercury boots level. I don't really know. But I only bring that up because if she doesn't have a super jump, then having just higher speed um, uh, is another important thing. I'm having a really hard time forming my sentences today. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what's gotten into me. Yeah, here are a few actual usages of the cat spell. I'm gonna most of the cat usage is actually gonna be in the Nest of Evil, because the Nest of Evil has a couple of rooms with armored enemies that need to die really fast. Because usually the reason I don't use the cat spell is because the dragon is not as good at fighting armored enemies, but it generally, if it's just like one armored enemy that I need to kill in a room, which is usually what the situation is, then the dragon works just fine. The difference is that in the Nest of Evil, there will be armored enemies that have to die, like, immediately, like, as soon as possible. So that's when the cat is going to be out of the bag, so to speak. Yeah, this is like... That's a great example of why the dragon coming in high is so important, because enemies coming down at you from above is so dangerous. And here, not quite the last one. It is nice that Maria like destroys these guys though. It's pretty funny. I also think in the Nest of Evil you're probably actually going to see her attack that heals her, because I think I'm going to have to use it at least once. There's a couple rooms that Maria can't, that's very hard for Maria to clear without taking damage. I would say probably impossible, at least one that I can think of. Or like, practically impossible, I would say. Because nothing in these games... I mean, there are things in these games that are impossible, but, yeah, see, this is why fighting the werewolf on Maria or Charlotte is kind of like a different ballgame than fighting it on, Jonathan or Richter, because the super jump means that things like what you just saw happen right there basically can't happen. But without the super jump, you're at the mercy of, well, you're not at the mercy of anything, but you just have to time your jumps way more carefully. You can't really, like, toy with him anymore. You have to be really super cautious about not standing in front of him for too long and timing your jump so that he'll stop moving while you're in midair. So that way you're not forced to fall back on top of him. Which are the two things that went wrong there. Maria has a little pose. I don't remember when she does that in Rondo, but I know that she does. What's funny is that all characters, except for Richter as far as I know, have a pose they will eventually adopt if you hold up for long enough, but Maria has the smallest required time to hold up in order to get the, whatchamacallit, to activate the pose. The Forgotten City. Yeah, I don't know, man. I should explain what I just meant when I said that. Because I'm still thinking about, like, Portrait of Ruin, and like where I would rank it. Because there's a lot of the game that's just kind of annoying, to be honest. Even on Richter and Maria mode, when like, where you can move really fast, it's kind of like, I don't know. Like, the werewolf boss is okay, but... And the bosses in the later half of the game are mostly pretty good, except for... except for the Frankenstein, arguably. Well, actually, honestly, at this point, my level of familiarity with the Frankenstein boss, I'm gonna say that just fighting one of them really isn't that bad. It's the double Frankenstein room in the Nest of Evil that's a big problem, but just one of them is not really a problem. And even the Medusa boss is like, manageable. So I like the late-game bosses. I don't really like a lot of the early-game bosses. I don't like Cleopatra. I don't like Legion, I don't like the thing that lives in the water with the frog on its back. I think the death fight is cool. The Stella fight? I don't know. I'm just not really very good at the Stella fight, I think is the bottom line. Because she's very, like, floaty and non-committal. Where she doesn't... Yeah, this is funny. I wasn't actually going to go down there, I just wanted to demonstrate that. Because she's not like a... She just kind of like floats around and like does whatever, I don't know. Stella fight not very good, death fight good. Doulahan fight pretty cool. I honestly wish that the Doulahan fight... I wish he had all of his hard mode mechanics but with normal mode damage, because they're kind of... I feel kind of bad that I never really got to show you guys what the hard mode Doulahan is like. Because he basically dies in every piece of footage that he shows up in. But like the Doulahan and the Behemoth are kind of like they're not really that interesting. Karamet is terrible. So I guess I would say the late game is better than the early game, even though the late game has like the Burnt Paradise, which kind of sucks, and the Forgotten City kind of sucks. And then the Nest of Evil, the Nest of Evil would honestly be perfectly fine if it wasn't for the Double Frankenstein room. Like, there are other rooms in the Nest of Evil that I've complained about before, but most of those complaints had to do with the fact that I was arbitrarily playing as one character or the other, and that's going to come up with this Maria playthrough, for sure. Like I said, I can think of one room at least where the, that I'm probably not going to be able to get out of, that I'm not going to be able to get out of without taking damage, and that I think may be impossible to get out of without taking damage on Maria. But the rest of it, I don't know, it's like basically fine. Yeah, there's nothing, this guy's not going to throw anything at me that I can't handle on Maria, and as you can see, the birds are going to absolutely shred him, so much like with previous iterations of the mummy fight, it's going to really come down to whether he summons the five rocks in the circle or not, because I really am still not confident with my ability to dodge that attack, but I think I can dodge everything else pretty well, like this. Yeah. What's funny is that this is pretty much how the fight against the mummy goes in Rondo if you play as Maria. Maria absolutely demolishes the mummy in Rondo. Because what's funny about Maria in Rondo, and I don't think this ever becomes relevant in Portrait of Ruin, is that in Rondo, Maria is significantly shorter than Richter, which means that there are some attacks in Rondo that that hit Richter, but that go just straight over Maria, which is pretty funny. And the mummy has like a wrapping attack that that goes right over Maria's head, so she can just stay in his face the whole time and just like burn him down. God, Rondo's a fun game. If I wanted to, I could probably kill those crows by jumping and triggering them and then shooting a dragon and letting them fly down into the dragon, but it wasn't necessary. I also don't know how fast... I wonder if the dragon works the way that... because the way that sub-weapons have worked in Castlevania traditionally is, like, in the very first game, in Castlevania 1, and in Dracula's Curse, you could, if you picked up a sub-weapon, like let's say you picked up the axe, there could only be one axe on the screen at a time. Then if you picked up a double shot, it would be, now you can have 2 axes on the screen at a time, and then triple shot with 3 axes on the screen at a time. So with the dragon, I wonder if the deciding factor for how fast I can shoot the dragon is like, can there only be 1 dragon on the screen at a time? Or is it like a time thing? Do they still program it like that? I don't know. Because I can't say I can... I can't really think of any situations where I've been able to shoot dragons faster than I otherwise would. Oh, this is pretty fucking stupid. Yeah, the shields on the ruler sword are dragon-proof shields, so she can't get through them. And that's kind of the only thing Maria can really do to fight the ruler sword. Because the thing about the ruler sword, I don't think I've talked about this yet. You're basically on a timer with the ruler sword, because if you're trying to kill it, you're going to jump at it. And if you're going to jump at it, then it's going to like float up above you. And pretty soon it's just going to start raining swords down on you, and it's just going to be like a total shit show. So you basically have to kill it before it does anything, but in order to do that, you have to like chase after it when it floats up there. So basically, if I can't kill it fast enough before I think it's going to get an attack off, then I'm just going to ignore it and leave it alone. I feel like it's delayed again. This is so weird. The audio, I mean. Because I was just watching the last part of the Richter normal mode run, and the audio seemed like it was properly synced, but now I feel like it's off again. This is very, very strange. Yeah, this is where the dragon shines, baby. What just happened there, like clearing out that room full of shit. It just hits everything. It just hits everything I want it to. Unless it bounces off of armor. Special anti-dragon armor. I also want to mention that I'm pretty sure I got through the 13th Street and the Forgotten City in about 10 minutes. I think. And I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to be out of the Dark Academy by, like, in another 2 minutes or another minute and a half, maybe. I don't know how long the Frankenstein is going to take to die. It's kind of not totally up to me. It kind of depends on how many times he does. Depends on what attacks he does, as always. So that sucks, but again, it's not really a huge deal if it's only one of them. Oh yeah, this is super important too. The fact that the dragon can intercept the bullets from Frankenstein's machine gun attack. What that means basically is that you're doubly incentivized. Like, you would want to deal damage to him if you were forced to be far away from him anyway, but that way, if you're far away from him, fuck. That is like... Because that was almost a no damage, and I'm actually pretty pissed off that it wasn't. That's like that thing with lightning where it targets where you were a second ago, and I thought that if I got close enough to him, I would not be in the spot that I was 2 seconds ago, which, to be fair, is not where I was, but I was too close to it anyway. And I guess what I should have done there is I should have sludded. I should have slid away from him instead of going back towards him, but that's not usually my impulse with the lightning attack, because usually with the lightning attack, I'm far enough away from him that I have some space in front of him that I can move into in order to avoid it. But there, it just didn't work out because I was too close to him. Probably because I'm used to the distance you can maintain with Richter when you're hitting him with the whip, but there, if you want to hit him with the birds, you do have to be a little bit closer to him. That is one thing. I guess that's another downside of Maria, is that she has the dragon, of course, for like super long range damage, but the dragon is not going to do damage to Frankenstein the way that the birds are going to do it consistently. So I can't just like sit. I mean, I guess I could if I wanted to, but the thing is that being away from Frankenstein, being at a distance away from him, is not really any guarantee of safety. And in fact, you want to be mostly close to him, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to be in a position where you're already far away from him, and then you have to go so far away from him that he's now off of your screen. Because that's how he just starts shooting shit at you that you can't see, and it becomes a dumpster zone. So that's another reason why I sort of err towards being as close to Frankenstein as I can. Because you always want to keep that asshole on the screen so you can see what the fuck he's up to. Dude, the Burnt Paradise and the Nation of Fools just, like, drain the energy out of me. Maybe I just have, like, Portrait of Ruin saturation sickness. Maybe I've overdosed on Portrait of Ruin. That might be the case. It is really nice that Maria's dragon can fucking kill those green slimes, because those green slimes, they will curse you and they will poison you. And on Richter mode, you don't have any items, you don't have any antidotes, you don't have any anti-curse, decurse potions. So if you get a status effect, you're going to be dealing with it the whole time. Although, what you could do, honestly, what you could do if you get cursed in the course of a normal Richter mode run, or when I say normal one, I mean one when you're not arbitrarily picking one character or the others, you can just swap to the other character. Like if Maria gets hit by a curse thing, then I can just swap to Richter and play as him until the curse ticks off. That seems to be the case anyway. I'm fairly sure I've seen curse fall off before on Richter mode when you're not on the active character. Yeah, the dragon is really fucking good for this fight too. The birds are pretty good too, but the dragon is good for dealing with the Medusa heads and also for when she's far away from you. Because nothing that Richter or frankly Jonathan or Charlotte really, nothing they can do is as good at hitting things that are far away as Maria's dragon is. Because there's always some kind of caveat, like Richter's whip goes pretty far, I guess, but the whip is like you have to commit to a certain position, and whereas with the dragon, it's like you just have to be on the same, you just have to be on the same horizontal plane. It's just easier to spam it from a safe distance, basically. And then Charlotte has Spirit of Light, but Spirit of Light has a bad habit of not hitting what you want it to, because it has a cast time, and then there's travel time for the projectiles. With the dragon, there is no cast time, and the travel time is very low because the thing moves at the speed of fucking light. So we're done with the 4 paintings. Now it's time for my favorite part, the Nest of Evil. It really is a nest of evil. It's a nest of... It's a nest of shit. Am I right? And again, I'll be pointing out when, like, this is bad, or, like, this is bad because I'm forcing myself to play only as Maria. Because those are two different things. And one of them is my fault, and one of them is not my fault. Most of the problems I'm going to encounter in the Nest of Evil, as I already said, stem from the fact that I'm arbitrarily preventing myself from using Richter. It's interesting to me that they picked Rondo Maria and not Symphony of the Night Maria to be the Maria in the alternate mode. I wonder why they made that decision, because because Adult Maria was playable in the Saturn version of I don't think Dracula X Chronicles is out yet, but Adult Maria was playable in the Saturn version of Symphony of the Night. Maybe, although the thing about Saturn Maria is that Saturn Maria is like, she basically is a totally different character from Rondo Maria in terms of the structure of her abilities. She doesn't have like a dragon and a cat and a bird. She has like, she like punches things and like does karate kicks. She's a very strange character, Saturn Maria. And then Dracula X Chronicles Maria is closer to Rondo Maria, but she doesn't do any damage, so she sucks. Yeah, mostly the Nest of Evil is easier on Maria than it is on Richter, because the fact that the dragon just travels in a straight line like that is especially important for the Nest of Evil, where the Nest of Evil has no There are no features of verticality. There's no platforms for enemies to be on. There's no, like, stairs to climb. It's just a fucking flat ground. Beautiful. I always love to see a no damage. That was actually a whole floor no damaged, but that's not actually that surprising because nothing on the first floor is particularly threatening to Maria. The Minotaur room is tricky for Richter, but for Maria, you just use the fucking, the dragon, and it solves all your problems. That was a strange decision to swap to the Cardinals there. I guess it actually did make sense to do that, because they were basically right above me. And this I think I planned out doing. But with the dragonflies in that first room, my plan is generally just to throw the dragon at them and hope that they all die. So it was unusual of me. It was the right decision to swap to the Cardinals there, but I'm surprised that I did it, because I would normally, if I have a plan for a room, I just kind of stick to it, and I'm not good at like improvising on the fly. Improvising on the fly is redundant. I'm not good at improvising. So I would think I would just like try to throw dragons at them, but that's not what I did. This room is like night and day, compared to like Richter and Charlotte, because Richter and Maria. I was thinking about how like impossible this room is on Charlotte on hard mode. That's why I said Charlotte there. And this guy, okay, I guess this works. It's funny to see the dragon bouncing off of it. I guess I don't really have a choice but to do that, because the way that the thing that I do there in the normal game is I'll try to kill that guy with just melee attacks, so that way I can save up my MP for fighting Gurgoth here, and then also have MP going into the next floor. But Maria's birds do 1 damage, I'm sure, to the Iron Golem, and she regenerates MP so fast, and her birds do such good damage to Gurgoth. Shouldn't make a difference. Because I want to minimize trips to the save station, is what I'm getting at. Like, if I can just go straight to the next floor instead of teleporting up and then teleporting back down, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, good. Yeah, see, Maria's MP recovers so fast, I'm already almost full. I was at like 30% coming out of Gurgoth, and now by the time I actually get to the next floor, I'm practically at full mana. Yeah, the dragon in Rondo of Blood is like hilariously overpowered. I wonder how many rooms in the Nest of Evil, like what percentage I solve just by walking in and then just spamming the dragon. I feel like it's a lot of them so far, which is probably why I haven't taken damage yet, because most of them have been simple enough that that's a viable solution. But I think I'm about to come to a part where I have to do something a little bit different. So that attack that I just did is the attack of Maria's that does holy damage, and that's what I want to do to fight these guys, because these guys basically only take damage from holy. As you can see, my birds are doing 1 damage. I admit I can't remember off the top of my head how much health a gold skeleton has, but it's a lot. So if I don't hit them with her holy punching attack, then I'm not gonna, then I'm not gonna do that much damage, as you can see. And I think there, I was like, I'm just not good at doing it. Like, every time you see me, like, randomly spaz out and then walk forward, that's me fucking up the special attack. Because it's not just about doing it, as you can see, it's also about, doing it close enough to them. And the problem is that the last part of the input is a directional input in the direction that you want to use it, and so what keeps happening there is I keep on, like, walking forward. And every time I actually get the attack off, I fucking get hit. So, ultimately... Oh my god. Okay, wow. I forgot this happened. Well, I guess I really gotta do this Zephyr fight well, then, huh? Fortunately, fighting Zephyr on Maria is actually pretty easy, because she's fast enough to dodge his attacks, and she can do big damage to him from as far away as possible with the dragon. And he's doing basically exactly what I would want him to do here, which is just dashing me over and over again. What I don't really want him to do is I don't really want him to do his jump up in the air and then throw a knife down attack. And I don't want him to just walk towards me. Those are the two things I don't want him to do. I also don't really want him to throw knives at me. Just because those attacks, every attack that I just listed, the knife throw, this attack, those are both more dangerous to dodge. And then if he's walking towards me, that's bad just because I don't really know what he's going to do and I can't respond to it. Fortunately, everything worked out. And if I was better at the Holy Fist healing attack, then that room with the gold skeletons would be pretty easy, but I'm just not good at it. And you noticed actually what I did there is I basically, if you're in any room of the Nest of Evil, if you're alive in the room for long enough, the doors will eventually open. So the only reason I don't jump over all 5 of them is because I'm not really confident that I could do that. But once there were only 2 left and I could clear both of them in a single double jump, I was like, fuck it. If I keep fighting this guy, I'm just gonna die. Like, jumping over them is risky, but at that point, continuing to fight him would have been risky too. And the thing about the gold skeleton room too is that even if they did take more damage from... Well, actually, if they took good damage from the Ice Dragon, then I would just spam the Ice Dragon to kill them, but... If they take any more than 1 damage from... Basically, if the damage they take from electric or ice is, like, better but still bad, then I can't use it, because using a dragon or using the cat there would aggro all of them, and I can really only fight one of them at a time, or I'd rather only fight one of them at a time. And so the reason things are going better here is because, for some fucking reason, I'm better at doing Maria's, like, fist attack if I'm facing to the left than if I'm facing to the right. I can't explain it, but the evidence that this is the case is abundant and it's on the screen before you. I'm doing this way more consistently. I'm basically doing here exactly what I wanted to be doing in the last gold skeleton room. Well, not exactly, because I'm still getting hit, but this is like, that's exactly what I wanted. I just couldn't fucking do it when I was facing to the right. Yeah, it's funny because the dragon, I think I already said this, but the dragon is listed as the holy dragon in some description, but it's not, it doesn't actually do holy damage. If it did, it would be fucking insanely overpowered. What boss is on this floor again? Oh yeah, Agony. Yeah, Agony's gonna die in like 2 seconds. Because the dragon does ice damage, and Agony is one of few enemies in the game, few relevant enemies in the game that is weak to ice damage, so I'm interested to see how much damage this does to him. If I can hit him twice, I think it's gonna do, yeah, fucking 436. He has like 4,000 health. So I only need to hit him, if I'm hitting him twice with each shot, then I only need to hit him like less than 10 times. But I don't think I'm getting double ticks on all of them. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Damn, that's crazy. If only the rest of the Nest of Evil could be that easy, because now we get into the part of the Nest of Evil that is like... It's a problem on Richter, it's easier on Maria, but it's still a pretty big problem on Maria, and that's the double Frankenstein into Trevor Cypher Grant, into the Doppelganger, and there's going to be another cut here, like before. Another cut to lead to the rest of the Nest. I would say it's the best of the Nest, but it's actually the worst of the Nest, and the Nest never really gets that good to begin with. So I think that for the Frankenstein fight, I decided to do what I did on Richter, which is I just decided, you know what? If I'm gonna reload saves... Oh no, I do something even funnier. Check this out. What the hell? Come on, do it. Yes! Oh my god. Okay, never mind. I thought I was gonna kill them, but I defeated them in a different way. That is like so dumb. I don't even know if I necessarily, I knew that was possible, but I don't remember if I was necessarily like trying to do that or not. Or if I was just like seeing if I could sit in the corner with the turtle shell on for long enough to survive. Obviously, as you can see, I was at like half health at the end there, so trying to do that to actually survive the full length of time that I would have to spend in the room in order for the door to open was not viable, but taking enough damage until one of them stomped on me and pushed me out of the room clearly was viable. So actually, I was mentioning everything about this part of the Nest of Evil that's a problem, and I totally neglected to mention the boss of this floor. My good friend, my best friend, Abaddon, from Dawn of Sorrow, because Maria actually demolishes Abaddon harder than any other character I've ever played as. And it's not even necessarily because she basically is the perfect Abaddon killer, because he's weak to slash damage, so the birds demolish him. And she has the dragon, and the dragon is really good at dealing with any bug attacks, dealing with like the forward waterfall attack, and with and I don't even need to use it to block the sideways U attack, because her birds just do it. Like, the dragon can block the forward waterfall attack, and then her birds just block like every other attack that could possibly be threatening. So Maria is actually insane when it comes to fighting Abaddon. Arguably, no, definitely better than even Soma with like the Malachi Soul, which is what I did in Dawn of Sorrow, because she just destroys him. So yeah, that's word of advice. If there's a boss you can kill with Maria, kill it with Maria, because she usually kills them really fast. And Abaddon is like fighting Abaddon on Maria and fighting Abaddon on Richter is like, it's like two completely different bosses. I'll be interested to see, to compare the overall time that this run took to the time that the Richter run took, because Richter obviously runs faster, but Maria kills everything so much faster, and I'm curious to see how those two balance out in the end. Okay, this is the room on Maria that like you probably just like have to take damage in, because I don't know. I guess what I'm supposed to do here is like jump over them once there's like a gap behind them, but it seems like when you're in the first part of the run and there's like nothing, there's like no room to move back to, it's like you're guaranteed to get hit. Once I can jump over them, once I can jump over them and there's no more behind them, then it's like, okay, now I can kind of play the game. But when they're first coming at you in that big pack, I don't really see what Maria can do to survive them. I don't know, I would have to do something. So yeah, the cave trolls, Maria can actually kill the cave trolls unlike Richter, because the dragon just hits them, and it hits them really fast and does enough damage to kill them in an economical time frame. Which is what you want with the cave trolls. You want the cave trolls to just die immediately. Oh, I was trying to do her heal herself attack here, but I'm just terrible at it, and I couldn't do it. Those guys would have been pretty good targets for it because they're weak to holy, so I think I could have gotten it off a couple times while still killing them before they like activate, which is what you want. You never want the Malphus enemies to live long enough to actually like do anything. Are you seeing this shit, by the way? Like, what exactly was the correct solution there? When there was like an obvious gap between Sypha and Trevor, and then I jumped towards it and Trevor just fucking closed the gap on me. Like, what the fuck was that? And then I had to fucking jump into Grant and get bonked back into the corner. Like, what the fuck? That's when this fight is fucking stupid, when it's doing shit like that. I don't know, maybe Richter's super jump would have made a difference there, but I don't know. And here, I think I killed the group here in a more conventional order, because with Richter, I went Sypha, Grant, Trevor, but I think on Maria, Trevor is just so dangerous that I had to kill Trevor second. And actually, I've kind of got a better system down for juking him now, because once he's hurt enough, that's when he starts doing the jumps. And once he starts doing the jumps, I can actually consistently, like I said, juke him and then get past him and get through to Sypha. So actually, normally doing damage to Trevor and getting him into this like second aggressive phase is pretty bad, but Here, it's actually a smart idea, because it means that I can get on Sypha and that I'm more in control of the fight here. Because if Trevor's more aggressive, that means I always know that he's coming towards me, and I can always get past him because now I know how to bait his jump. Which was like the piece that was missing for a long time with this fight with me. I think the reason that I'm trying to remember why I didn't just do that with Richter. Because I'm pretty sure I knew at this point about... Well, maybe I didn't, actually. I'd have to wait. I'd have to see... Because the thing is, this is the last... This is the second Richter mode run that I'm going to upload. This is actually the last one that I did. So I don't know if I did anything... If I baited any jumps in the hard mode footage. I really can't remember. So here's the doppelganger fight. Boring as shit. Fortunately, it's weak to slash, and Maria can actually get a couple hits in on it when it's in its like dead zone. After it lands from the jump, then it kind of stands still for a few seconds, and you can get a few hits in. If it didn't do that, then this fight would like be fucking unbearable. And I said something actually all the way back in my very first Portrait of Ruin commentary video on Jonathan, which was that there was something about the Castlevania fandom wiki that I thought was wrong. And what I think it's wrong about is I think it's wrong about the doppelganger's health. Because according to the Castlevania fandom wiki, the doppelganger has 2,000 HP, but I'm 98% sure that on hard mode at least I've done 2,000 damage to the doppelganger and it hasn't died. So either the health is different on Richter mode or it's different on hard mode, or it just isn't 2,000 in any difficulty. And I guess if I really wanted to, I could go through this footage, like minute by minute, to count up the damage and see if if it dies at 2,000 or not, but I really don't want to do that. I think it would be much easier to do that with my hard mode footage, which you'll see why when I get to hard mode. Because in hard mode, I actually do fight the Richter doppelganger. In both of these normal mode runs, I got the Maria doppelganger, but in hard mode, I get the Richter doppelganger, and fighting the Richter doppelganger on Richter is, I think, basically... I mean, I'm sure it's not impossible, but I never figured it out. But fighting the Richter doppelganger on Maria is really, really interesting, actually. And it's pretty difficult, but what I like about it is that there is a consistent rule to it, which you'll see when I upload that footage. So there's the Nest of Evil done. Now it's time to go fight Bronner and go fight Dracula. And I don't remember which of these fights I know damage in this run, but I would say that Richter should be a no damage, or not Richter, Bronner rather should be a no damage. Bronner should be a no damage. Phase 1 of Dracula, maybe, and then Phase 2 of Dracula, maybe. I'm very confident about saying, like, I should no damage Phase 1 of Dracula on Richter, but what I want to talk about now actually is Maria on the Bronner fight, and why Bronner is so much easier on Maria than Richter. So, Bronner is all about, this sequence... Okay, no, I don't know damage Bronner, because I get hit by that. Whatever. If I'm going to take any damage on Bronner, that's like when it's going to happen. So, the Bronner fight is based around this little, pattern of he summons paint, you destroy the paint, then he throws his actual attack at you, and you have to evade that. And the thing about the fight that makes it tricky under normal circumstances is that while he's summoning summoning the paint, and while he's doing his main attack, you have to keep your distance from him. You can't really get that close to him, or else you're really in danger of getting hit. But with Maria, the fact that she can just shoot dragons at him from a mile away means that she can be doing damage to him basically all the time. And as you saw there, her like heal herself fist attack, I think it's called Guardian Knuckle, is really good against him because he's weak to Holy. It does better damage than the birds, but the thing is that Due to the nature of the input, I'm always concerned that I'm gonna walk into Bronner when I do the Guardian Knuckle attack, because, like I think I already mentioned, the last input of Guardian Knuckle is a directional, you push like the direction you want to use the attack in. So if I fuck up the timing, and I press I press the D-pad, the hypothetical D-pad, towards the enemy, then I can just like fucking walk into him, which is almost happening there a couple times. But ultimately, I guess I decide that it's worth it because I'm doing 200 damage a pop with each successful Guardian Knuckle, whereas the birds are doing much less than that. And this attack right here with the spinning wheel things is actually kind of dangerous on Richter, because Richter moves so fast that it's really easy for him to accidentally walk into the little leg in front of him. But Maria is tiny, and her movement speed, while still pretty fast, is more manageable than Richter's, so she doesn't have that problem. And I think at a certain point I just give up trying to do the Guardian Knuckle attack and I just hit him with the birds, because Guardian Knuckle's doing 208 a pop, but the birds aren't... Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, well, alright, I guess that's not really... I don't know. I was kind of in a bad position either way there. I guess it works. That is fucking... I thought he was too far away from me. Like, usually if he's that far away from you when he does, like, the painting attack, he swoops, like, an area that's, like, closer to him and further from you. But there he, like, went all the way across the screen, which is not at all what I was expecting. And here, do I swap to Richter to get the magic upgrades and the health? Or do I go back to the save station? No, I'm disciplined. I go back to the save station. Okay. Because there's an MP expansion and an energy tank right before the Dracula fight, but you can only get it with Richter. And I was wondering if I would just, like, get it to full heal before without having to go to a save station, or if I would... Because technically, getting those two would constitute an advantage that I gained from using Richter, and this is supposed to be a run where I don't use Richter unless it's absolutely necessary. And here is the final boss. So Maria is not as good at fighting these guys as Richter is, obviously. And actually, I'm also going to swap to Richter during this fight to avoid Dracula's Bad Moon Rising attack. But as you can see, for most of this fight, I'm going to be using the birds. And also, as you can see, Death is finally taking damage from my magic attacks, so I don't have to use Richter to fight him, fortunately. Yeah, the bird's doing 17 damage or 39 damage instead of 1 damage or 0 damage is an important distinction. Yeah, and like, I kind of, I don't know, if I was hyper committed to the concept, I would like count that as damage I have to take, but like, that just seems kind of stupid. And if I already, like, fudged the rules by using Richter on the Grim Reaper fight, then I think I can fudge the rules by using Richter to dodge an attack that Maria has literally no way of dodging, as far as I know. I mean, if there's some way to dodge that attack besides super jumping, I would like to know what it is. Because the thing is that when I did Charlotte only, like, that attack is still dodgeable, because Charlotte can use Owl Morph, and because they kind of telegraph that attack, because the first time they congregate in the middle of the room, that's the attack they're going to do. So you have time to, like, swap to Owl Morph and turn into the owl and go from there. Yeah, that attack kind of sucks because you are kind of... It's just very easy to run out of, like, places you can be. Because I couldn't really get away from Dracula there, which is what I was supposed to do. Because, I mean, I don't know, maybe I could have. I'd have to go back and look at it again, but it seemed like there was just a bunch of scythes between me and any space away from Dracula. And one difference, actually, between Rondo Maria and Portrait of Ruin Maria that I only am just now remembering is that something that makes Rondo Maria so overpowered is not only does she move faster than Richter in Rondo, but she also can attack while moving. And Richter obviously cannot do that. And here in Portrait of Ruin, Maria cannot attack while moving. I understand why. Fuck. Okay, there we go. And the birds are indeed doing 2 damage to Dracula, which is pretty fucking weird. I don't know why they're like not doing any damage to him. But hey, 2 damage is twice as much as 1 damage, right? And the dragon is doing 60 a pop, so that's not bad. Although I think the well, I don't know if I was firing off cardinals at a fast enough pace. Here I don't have to worry about conserving my MP. I was worried about conserving my MP when I played as Richter because of Dracula's attack where he'll summon like spikes on the edge of the room and you have to damage them to drive them away from you. But the thing is that Maria doesn't need MP to deal with that. Her bird attack is really, really good at getting the spikes out of the way. Richter probably doesn't need MP anyway, but Richter's damage output on the spikes just isn't as good as Maria's, so it doesn't, having some MP makes a difference. I also have a funny theory about... I feel like he does that charge attack where he covers his face. Like, whenever I'm hitting him with a bunch of white birds, I feel like he does the attack. But, well, he didn't do it there, so maybe it's just confirmation bias. It seemed like he was doing it a lot, is what I'm getting at. Because I've fought this guy a lot of times, and he will sometimes only use that charge attack where he covers his face, like, once a fight. But there he did it, like, 4 times. Which is very unusual. Yeah, true Dracula has 6,666 HP, which means I'm going to have to shoot 110 dragons at this guy, minus how much damage I'm doing with the white birds. So the biggest issue with this fight really is just that it's going to take a long time, and it's going to really test my knowledge of the timing on that little on that charge that he does. I don't think there's any space during this fight where you can use Maria's like Guardian Knuckle heal yourself attack, because he's just never close enough to the ground. And on the one hand, like, I kind of wish Maria did have a holy attack, but on the other hand, one of the things about Richter mode that's so good, and something that it does better than Charlotte than the main game, is that it does incentivize the use of both characters, and the fact that it divvies out attacking types in the way that it does is why that's the case. So, as annoyed that I am that I can't like solo the game with Maria perfectly smoothly, that is ultimately an indication of good design. Because it means I'm encountering issues that I can't deal with on Maria, but that I can deal with on Richter. Whereas, like I said in my other videos, Charlotte and Jonathan basically do the same thing. Oh no, how am I gonna get out of this? Get fucking owned, idiot. Shithead. Tried to fucking corner me with that bullshit at the last second, but I'm a little bit too smart for that. I guess maybe when he's down on the ground doing the scythe attack, maybe you could hit him with Guardian Knuckle, but that sounds like a great way to instantly die. Because that red scythe attack that he does a billion fucking damage. I don't know how much exactly, but it's always a ton. It might have actually killed me if it had hit me there. Well, that Dracula fight wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but that's becoming a theme in a lot of these videos. It's partially just because of my expectations. When I've practiced a fight enough times, like, I get into a... sorry, I have the window open. It's the middle of the night, so I didn't anticipate there being any noise out there, but unfortunately there is a little bit. Once I practice a fight enough, it becomes like I want a no damage, and I don't know if expect is the right word, but like I feel bad if I don't get a no damage, which is not really like reasonable. especially on a fight, because the Dracula death fight is pretty hard. It's a boss fight that I really love, but it is also pretty hard. And True Dracula is pretty hard. If you're not playing it, if you're not fighting him on a character that can super jump, because you have to get that specific timing to slide under the dash attack. I would say fighting True Dracula on Maria is probably harder than fighting him on Charlotte, because Charlotte can do better damage, so the fight doesn't last as long. I don't know how long that was exactly, but it seemed like it was a pretty long time as far as True Dracula fights go. Charlotte has Tome of Arms X, and she has Spirit of Light, so she can hit him with a lot of holy damage, but Maria has to just kind of throw dragons at him until he dies. The ending was really satisfying, though, because it was like he did the thing that True Dracula can do that's like total fucking bullshit, where he just corners you with the flame pillar attack, but I was ready for it. Because I'd been in that situation before when I practiced the fight, and then I knew exactly what to do when I got there. So that was a satisfying moment, because I think maybe if he'd hit me with one of those sides, I would have died. Anyway, that's Maria only. That's normal mode. Only one more run of Portrait of Ruin, believe it or not. This endless journey is nearly at an end, or at least this part of the journey is. The rest of the journey is still before me. Maria's fun to play. She's not as fun to play in Portrait of Ruin as she is in Rondo, because in Rondo, she's the faster of the two characters, which makes her feel... And she can double jump, and Richter can't double jump in Rondo. So she just feels like she's breaking the game, basically. And it feels like she can just like do whatever she wants, which is overpowered, but is also kind of fun. In Portrait of Ruin, she's much more balanced, and the fun mostly just comes from using her for what the game wants you to use her for, which is like destroying bosses and doing a bunch of specialized damage and clearing out most of the nest of evil with the dragon. So that's Maria. Keep your eyes peeled for the hard mode run. That's going to come out soon. And keep on Earth rocking. Earth rocking.